Well, I'm going to move on to the next question here, which is how do you prepare students for the experience that they're about to have with service learning? How do you introduce it to them, and how do you prepare them to go wherever it is they're going and do what they're going to do?
This is the toughest question, I think, of all of them, honestly. I just want to tell a little story, if you don't mind. The director of the Hill House, what's her? Terry. So we did the tour. I'm not sure who was there was it last fall or last spring? I forget. This past fall. Okay. So, and Terry from the Hill House greets us, and she tells this story about how when she started her kind of first initial kind of interactions with service learning was actually with the engineering, some sort of department from Carnegie Mellon, and she was talking about how trailing them and following this kind of basic travel through there was architecture, I guess, studies in the Hill District, and she was just horrified by the impressions and the language and the words of the students that were coming in there in terms of what impressions they had about the neighborhood they're going to, the types of people that were there, and so on. So, she said to us, as the Duquesne faculty said, you have to prepare, your students to come into these. You can't just send them here, and you have to prepare them to come into the neighborhoods. So, it really was kind of a powerful message for me. And some semesters, not since I've done this for a couple of semesters, some semesters it seems to work better with others in terms of preparation, and others not as well. And I try to think, why is this? Why is it? And what I've found for me personally, one of the things that's been very helpful is bringing in community. This is tough to do. It would be nice if we could systematize this in some sort of way on campus, but bring in community members here on campus first before going to the, as part of a dialogue before going to the community. But that was, to me, the classes I think that worked best were where I had community members speak to the class in relationship to specific topics before we went in, and then we went in and we had all those relationships, and I think the students were more at ease. But I know that doesn't always work, especially with partners' times and so on. So, but I think this is the hardest question on your list.
Norman.
Well, I'm fortunate because it's a pretty easy thing for us, because since Inside Out is a national program and it's a set structure, there's a orientation component built right into it. So I go through that with the Duquesne students, I go through that with the students at the county jail. Then even on top of that, an administrator comes up and kind of goes through it again with the kids on campus and the guys in the jail. So it's kind of set up nicely.
Yeah, I find that there's two things. One thing that you mentioned is to have connections with my community partners and have them come visit as soon as they're ready to do it, to talk about their organization and what they do. And second is to have readings that are connected with where we're going, so that the students have kind of a sense, like we worked on homeless issues, to have some readings from the beginning that get them kind of aware of what are some of the issues, what are we expecting. So those two things.
I'm thinking that there are really two different aspects to preparation. There's one aspect which is preparing students for the environment in which they're going to find themselves, but another aspect of preparation is preparing them for a service learning experience itself. That this is not a typical course. There's a service learning component to this course. Can you speak to that sort of preparation? How do you prepare them for that?
I was just going to say, I actually do an information briefing to the students very early in the semester, and then they organize themselves as well, which is one of the things we do. We have them organized with student leaders and whatnot, so that there is accountability and responsibility built into the exercise. But so I lay it out very formally, and I tell them how we talk learning objectives and what they're going to be doing, how many hours, all of the nuts and bolts of how the experience is constructed or structured. But the other thing that I do in our particular case is I tell them that it's not going to be sunshine and daisies, because in our case, certainly for the kids who were doing the tutoring, they almost had uniformly very positive experiences and come back glowing and everything else. For the folks who worked on the campaigns, the political campaigns, both Republican and Democratic campaigns, and we do that every year. And also, a common activity that they all have to do is an on-campus voter registration and absentee ballot drive. And I tell them up front, preparing them for it, that it's, you know, you're going to find out what American politics is all about, and it's not like the West Wing TV shows. It's a lot of hard work and a lot of people who are going to be disgusted because you're asking them political questions, and that's what they find. They find that within the student body, and then out inside the campaigns as well. So I think there's an element of making sure that their expectations are realistic and they understand what they're getting into when they go into the activities.
Thank you, Kathy, and then we're going to move on to another question.
Well, we held a kickoff session here on campus. We invited all of the students to attend. They were able to watch a GPLC video. We gave them pizza. And we also invited Fred Erdman to speak, so he gave them a sense of what service learning meant, what it would look like. And this was Timothy Vincent's idea, we all walked down as a community, faculty and students to the GPLC, where we got another orientation, and then we walked back as a group. So it turned out to be a nice experience, I think, and it gave them some exposure to service learning, and it gave them an opportunity to visit the site, which was nice too. They knew exactly where it was, so there could be no questions later about how to get there and issues of getting lost, things of that nature.